Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Jan Sewing Solutions. These are going to be sewing lessons that I'm doing for a group of girls. I feel a little bit embarrassed actually standing here because I'm standing in front of my teacher. So I'm going to be reprimanded as well. Okay, I'm embarrassing her. No, she's not going to be on camera. I'm the one who's going to be doing the talking. But these are lessons for beginners and I'm going to take you through step by step from A to B. Now, what was I going to say? Okay, I'm going to get questions asked. So what I'm going to hope to do is address questions as well. So that way, anybody who experiences problems that these girls are going to experience, then you can put your questions forward as well and we'll try and address as much as possible. So, okay, the first thing I've mentioned to the girls is that judge your fabric before you actually go onto the cutting of the fabric. So when I said judge your fabric, sometimes when you get fabrics like these, they have you know, when the fabric has been woven, there's disproportionate stretching that goes against the one side. In our Asian language, they call that koon. In English, I'm not sure what they call it. But basically what happens is when you lay the fabric flat like this, the edges do not meet up. Okay, and when that happens, the end result will depend on that. So we have to try and eliminate that as much as possible. That sometimes requires the fabric to be stretched. So if you notice, if these grain lines were laid side to side, and if they were not meeting up, and one was coming out more than the other from the other side, then the side that's coming out lengthier, it means that the grain has dragged along, and we have to try and stretch this one so that they meet up. So that can be done in two ways. One, you grab hold of the fabric from the ends and you give it a really nice pull. Also, you can dampen it slightly and you can push against that side upwards and you can try and eliminate that, so that when you lay the fabric flat, that actually comes out as much as possible, because that ultimately will depend on the end result of the way your salwar hangs. Once that's eliminated, what you will have is when you lay the fabric down, it will sit a lot better. Okay, this fabric is actually quite good, but you will experience that some fabrics will have a lot more koon than others. So that's something actually to bear in mind when you're buying, to sometimes just have a quick look at, you know, how well the fabric is woven. Okay, and the fabrics that I've noticed, the biggest problems, type of problem fabrics are mostly lawn, and anybody who watches the videos regularly will know that I've discussed that in depth, especially when you come to make designer suits and they've had block printing done on them, and there was massive you know, the dysfunction in the fabric, and then they block printed it and the print has come all over the place. So I will, when I find a fabric that's got a lot of that, I will give a demonstration of that as well, so that you sort of know for yourself. Okay, so this particular fabric is sitting very well. We're going to cut a salwar. I have pressed it so that, you know, it is sitting properly. And the other recommendation, especially for beginners, I would give is, rather than cutting both the parts of the salwar together, cut them one at a time, and that way you will eliminate the problem of folding the two fabrics together and then later realizing that one piece has cut more than the other. Because sometimes when you're folding the fabric in four, I mean, once you've got the experience and you've got, you know, you can do that quite easily. But if you're new, it's a lot easier to do it like this and then take that one palla, lay on top of the other and cut it from that. Okay, so when we're cutting salwar, we're taking a few measurements. You're taking the measurement from your waist down to where you want the salwar to end. So if you're going to be wearing high heels, then try and bear that in mind, right? That, you know, I'm going to be wearing high heels. I need the salwar a little bit longer to sort of accommodate for that. But the average, the way you would measure a salwar, wherever you're comfortable, some people wear it on the waist, some people wear it on the hip. If you're wearing your salwar on the hip, bear in mind that then you want your crotch shorter. If you're wearing it higher, then you want the length of the crotch to be longer. Okay, so the salwar is going to be made in two parts. There's going to be the bottom portion, which is going to be quite wide and heavy, and then you want the belt, which you want it narrow. Now in the olden days, our elder generation wore salwars without the belts, which meant that it was quite bulky on the waist, and those were called the baggy salwars. Yeah, baggy pants. Okay, and if anybody, I know a lot of my Western viewers have commented that, oh, they're so big, how do you get it around your waist? You know, you can fit 10 people in the waistline of this. It's normally worn with like a drawstring or elastic, and it does have a lot of gathers on the waist. A belted salwar is, the gathers are done on just below the hip line. Okay, so on the waist there isn't a lot of bulk. Sometimes you will get salwars like this one, which is a fitted salwar, which is very fitted around the waist, and that's more like if you were wearing perhaps like a t-shirt on top of it, then that's, but majority of the time we wear kameez, which are quite lengthy and they cover this part anyway. Okay, so the type of salwar we're going to be cutting is from a standard 45-inch wide fabric. It's going to be cut in a very, very simple method called Goody Weather. Goody card. Goody card. I don't know why it was named Goody card. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, and so for that you need your full length, which is so an average size person like me is 39 inches is the full length of the salwar. The belt on that, I would put a 6-inch belt on that, and the length of the actual salwar would be 33 inches. Now those are finished measured sizes, both 6-inch belt and both 33 inches of the salwar. So with that we need to add some turning and seam allowances. Okay, so if we break that down, for the belt we need a length of 6 inches ready, but we need 3 inches on top, and the 3 inches on top would be for the turning and the seam allowances. So you would have 2 inches for the turning and an inch, half an inch on either side for your seam allowance. For the salwar, you want the length to be 33 inches plus half an inch on top for the seam allowance, plus 1.5 inches below for the turning of the poncha. So you are talking about 35 inches of length. Yeah? So that's your two standard measurements of the length. Then we go on to the width of the salwar. The width of the salwar is entirely up to the person how wide they're going to make it, but a standard salwar is the width of the fabric, which on this particular case is, this fabric width is 42 inches. So the whole width of the salwar would be 42 inches. The whole width of the salwar would be 42 inches, so half a side would be 21 inches. Okay, and what we're going to do is cut two symmetric pieces that will be sewn in the middle, one for one leg and one for the other. Okay, the next measurement is you've got to decide on your poncha, and that again is optional. We're going to make a finished poncha of 7.5 inches, so I would keep it 8.5, and I would play around with the inch for the seam allowance. Then going on to the belt, for the belt we want to take our waist measurement, and the waist measurement we need to add an additional 4 inches to that for ease of wearing, because this is going to be elasticated and you want to actually make sure that it goes over your hip area. Actually it's the hip area plus the 4 inches that we normally make it, not the waist, because some people do have big hips So if you made it to, if you had a small waist and if your hips were big, then you would have a problem. So it's actually the hip area plus the 4 inches. My mistake there. Okay, so that's all the information. I'm going to take a pause there and let the girls take their measurements and break them down into their patterns. I'm going to do the same and do like a diagram pattern so that we're all clear on what we're doing in the next step.